What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well today. And today, in this video, we're going to be talking about a little something the Seattle Seahawks have done and are doing that is affecting the rest of the league, at least on some level. I think that it's debatable how much the Seahawks are involved here, but something is definitely happening in this league right now, and the Seahawks are definitely playing some kind of role in it. And I saw this tweet yesterday. I actually had somebody in the Discord link it, and I thought it was pretty interesting because there was something that happened in the 2026 NFL draft that was very unexpected. I think that would be a fair word, and it was also something that was kind of how should I put this, suboptimal, I would say, and it had to do with the tight ends. Let's talk about this. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. More on them in a moment. But there were a lot of tight ends going in the 2026 draft. And to be clear, the 2026 draft, the tight end class was not supposed to be that good. And I would go so far as to say it's not that good. So, first of all, let's understand something. The 2026 NFL draft had 22 tight ends get taken. 22. You can see a list of them on the screen right here. That is a record. As near as I can tell, the previous record was either 19 or 20. So this draft had more tight ends taken than any other draft ever. And you take a look at this list here. You've got Sadiq, who is the star, who is the reigning star of the show at tight end. Athletic freak, very, very special talent. Eli Stowers of Vanderbilt, very, very hyper elite talent. So, okay, I get it. So far, those guys probably deserve what they got, right? Sadiq deserves to go at 16. Stowers deserves to go in the mid to late second round, no problem. But then you start getting into some guys that weren't even that good in college. And to me, 2 picks after Stowers, you get Nate Bokercher, who is basically a tight end from the 1960s, just a blocker, not really any kind of a receiving threat at all. And then you start getting into Marlon Klein, who barely even played that much at Michigan. And what's going on here? You go through this list. Yes, some of these guys I like. Like, I don't mind Claire. I think it's a little bit of a reach. Sam Roosh, same thing. I like him. Maybe a little bit of a reach. Oscar Delp, that's a good pick. But Will Kamarick wasn't even a starter really in college. I like Eli Raridon, but he's got the injury stuff. And you keep going down this list, and you've got overdrafts everywhere. And it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, some of the picks do. Like, okay, I can mess with Jack Andres in the 7th round. That's a good pick. Dallin Bentley in the 7th round's a nice little pick here. But a lot of this stuff is just really confusing to me. And how is this class the one that sets the all-time record? Well, this tweet believes they know why. Because everybody is looking at A.J. Barner of the Seattle Seahawks and thinking to themselves, that's what we need. We need a tight end that can play in line as a blocker while also being a receiver and be very good at both things. And in order to do that, you're going to have to search around a little bit, and you're going to have to be willing to use a higher than expected pick on a tight end that wasn't necessarily a great player in college, because that goes for Barner. If you like sports, the best way to make them better and more exciting is using Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks, all you got to do is pick more or less on your favorite players' projections and build lineups with a few taps. It's the daily fantasy stuff, but it's made super easy over there. Whatever sport you're into, give it a shot. And right now, Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All you have to do is use promo code HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far. It makes this daily fantasy thing very easy, and it makes watching the games way more exciting. Be sure to check out the social feeds feature so you can share lineups with your friends and tail partners, or even fade their picks. Right now, Prize Picks is offering odds on the NFL draft. You have who's going to go where, what each team is going to do, how many of each position is going to go in each round, and so on and so on. Get on over to Prize Picks. Take advantage of that. So, download Prize Picks today, America's #1 sports app, and remember to use the promo code HMA. And remember, always gamble responsibly. So, obviously, this tweet is in part about AJ Barner, but really what it's about is the direction of the league right now. The direction of the league right now is to be tight end heavy, to have a lot of tight ends on the field from snap to snap, and to have guys that can, at the very least, offer things in both areas of the game, be it run blocking or pass catching. So it's not just the Seahawks, right? The Rams are doing this too. The Rams loved to go 3 tight end last year, and it worked great. The Rams had 3 legitimately solid tight ends last year with Ferguson, Parkinson, and Higbee when he was healthy. And despite that, they still drafted Max Clare in the second round this year, which, I mean, I think that was a bad pick, but I don't think it's a bad pick that comes out of nowhere. It's a pick that is kind of generated from this idea that tight ends in the NFL are the meta, and you really want guys like Barner. Because if you'll remember, AJ Barner was not that notable of a player in college. A lot of people perceived him going in the middle of the 4th round in 2024 as a reach. I think he was projected to be more like a 5th or even 6th round pick because you look at his career, he was a good blocker, but as a receiver, he had never topped 250 yards in a season. He had never topped 30 catches in a season, and he only had 1 season with a major program in Michigan because remember, Indiana was nothing back in the early 2020s. So, excuse me. So there wasn't necessarily a ton here, but the Seahawks made the selection, and in some ways they were very fortunate and also very perceptive that he ended up being a much better player in the pros than he was in college. But this is kind of why you're seeing things like this, where you have several tight ends that really were not productive receiving in the collegiate game. One exception I would make to this list was Oscar Delp. Oscar Delp was not productive at Georgia, but he is a very talented pass catcher. He just didn't get the ball that much for various reasons. I don't think Delp is a deficient receiver at this point, but these other guys, sure. Especially somebody like Bokircher or Kamarick, who barely caught anything in college to my recollection. So it is kind of weird that these would suddenly become the guys you want. But in a football league that is really prioritizing taking away the big play, excuse me, and really limiting what teams can do with deep downfield passing and trying to really take the teeth out of the passing attack, getting these kinds of tight ends who can provide a threat in the passing game while also being good blockers is becoming really important. So I guess you can in some way, although again, the Seahawks are not the only team doing this. There are other teams that are very tight end heavy. You can add this to the list of the Seahawks being kind of trendsetters again. There was a time many, many years ago, over a decade ago, where the Seahawks were trendsetters with Russell Wilson. Before Russell Wilson, there was a perception that quarterbacks like Russell Wilson were too short, too small to be successful. But after Russell Wilson had success, you saw guys like Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray be drafted very high. There was a perception that you didn't want a big and potentially a little bit slower and less athletic cornerback, guys like Richard Sherman, Brandon Brown, or Byron Maxwell. But after the success of the Seahawks with guys like that, there was suddenly a much bigger market for cornerbacks like that to be drafted highly and be thought of highly because Carroll had so much success with that group. So here we are, maybe being trendsetters again with this whole tight end thing. And remember, think about Eric Saubert for a second here. Now, it's a little bit different, I know. Eric Saubert is not any kind of receiving tight end threat. He's not really an athlete. He's somebody that will catch the occasional pass here and there and not much else. But this team went out of their way to re-sign Eric Saubert for 2026 during the season last year. So for some reason, they really liked what they saw with Saubert enough to make sure they would keep him beyond 2025. I think that probably comes back to this whole tight end thing. Guys like Saubert, limited though they may be, are very valuable right now. So interesting stuff, fun stuff to think about. And yeah, it does kind of feel like on some level the Seahawks had something to do with all these teams going crazy drafting tight ends. And maybe this explains other things happening in this league right now too. Like maybe you can even go back to last year and talk about Elijah Arroyo, a pick that I still don't think makes a lot of sense. You're using 50th or what was it? Yeah, I think 50th overall on Elijah Arroyo. But maybe this is just going to be the way things are with the tight end position. You got to go a little bit earlier than you think because these guys are becoming really valuable. And it's not so much the super freak athletes like the Kenyon Sadiq or Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, although I still think those guys are very valuable. It's the AJ Barners of the world. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. More videos coming later. I'm going to do a Mariners video later today before the next Mariners game, so keep an eye out for that. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think about this. And I know there's nothing really actionable here. AJ Barner is under contract for 2 more years. Arroyo's under contract for 3. And Sawbird's under contract for 2026. So it's not like we're going to go out and get another tight end because of this trend. We don't need to, but it is kind of notable that it seems like players like AJ Barner had something to do with this. Okay, go Hawks. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and see you guys soon.